Welcome you to this, maybe the first ever combined meeting of the Beach Grove Redevelopment Commission and the City Council. The City Council. I just came from Indianapolis, so I got something else on my mind tonight, but appreciate you all being here tonight. I'd like to call to order this, the City Council meeting for tonight, and I'll turn it over to the President of the Redevelopment Commission to call his group to order, please.
I'd like to call the Redevelopment Commission to order on this 21st day of February, and we'll start with the introduction of members, starting at the end.
Thank you, Secretary. Greg Sheets, good.
Cindy Kirkoffer, Vice President.
Terry Delk, President.
Tricia Lemminger, City Attorney.
And we'll start over here with the council.
Mike Vince, Council at Large.
Ed Bell, District 2.
Bill Sensible, District 5.
Ross Martin, District 3.
John Jennings, District 4.
Sarah Kincaid, Clerk Treasurer. I'm screwing up now.
We didn't consider you in tonight.
I don't know.
If everybody would please stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
No, we're not going to do any of that.
Okay. Can we go straight to that one?
Go ahead.
Okay, the agenda for this evening, as you know, we're going to adopt some properties into the redevelopment area. We're going to start with Mr. Shavers, and he'll do an explanation of the amendment. And after Mr. Shavers, Jeff Peters will do a financial explanation. And then Rick Hall will be here to explain the resolution and introduce that to the City Council. With that, Mr. Shaver,
Sit here.
please.
Okay.
You're getting my best side. Thank you. Excuse me, it's an honor to be here. It's kind of a historic evening. I think this is the first time in history that the Redevelopment Commission and the City Council have met in joint session. So congratulations. But this is only the first opportunity you're going to have over the course of this year to make history. I think that there are really good things happening in Beach Grove, and I'm proud to be a part of those. And hopefully, with your input, we'll make them better as we move through. The plan amendment that you are receiving tonight has the redevelopment goals, projects, and strategies for the comprehensive redevelopment plan, which the city has been undertaking, the Redevelopment Commission and the city have been undertaking for approximately a year. We're looking to wrap up this plan as we move through this process. There are, I believe we agreed, 2 different stages that we're going to go through. The first one is a small set of properties we referred to as Group A. That's still correct? Okay, I just want to make sure I hadn't departed from you guys. But it basically boils down to this. Beach Grove is one of only a handful of landlocked communities in the state. What that has meant for the other landlocked communities is that property taxes have had severe upward pressure. We all know what's going on at the State House, although none of us know how it's going to turn out. But what we have been trying to do with this comprehensive redevelopment plan is to develop a set of strategies, residential, commercial, and industrial, for redevelopment that does several things at the same time. The Redevelopment Commission has charged me with the responsibility of placing as the highest priority strategies that will enhance individual residential property values in Beach Grove, to set those on an upward course that is equal to, in appreciation, that is equal, revenue or value appreciation, that is equal to at least the rest of Marion County and hopefully exceeding that. For the last 5 to 10 years, Beach Grove properties have not been appreciating as fast in assessed value as the rest of the properties in Marion County. And I think you're already starting to catch up. But the long and the short of it is that affects individual people's personal wealth. And that is, Terry, Tricia, Greg, Mike, Cindy have all said trying to help people with their personal wealth is the top priority. The second thing, and so we have a set of residential redevelopment strategies. The second thing then is commercial redevelopment strategies that focuses on two main corridors. Emerson Avenue, and Main Street. The Redevelopment Commission has been extremely aggressive in pursuing, in leveraging TIF revenues to get grant funds, and I think you've got $4.5 million that somewhere toward the end of the year, by the time NDOT gets through all their bureaucracy, you'll be starting to get to work on that. Does that understand?
That's correct.
Okay. That is a huge leveraging factor. That and the Emerson Avenue improvements is several times the amount of grant money that the city has gotten in the last 15 years. The Greenway adds to that in yet another way. And in the Greenway situation, we believe that the design of the Greenway in connecting the schools and the parks along its route creates synergies that even the Monon Trail doesn't have. The only thing that you don't have that the Monon Trail has is a long corridor connecting virtually to downtown. Indianapolis will get around to that at some point in the future, but for right now, their south side trail development has not been up to what their north side trail development has been. Historically, what we have found in those kinds of things is that people that live near such trails are skeptical, but we have found, and it's been proven in the Monon case, that when it's time to sell their house, that's one of the main things that they advertise because they know it elevates their value. So again, we're back to the elevating people's individual property values. The second part of this piece is commercial, as I started to say, which is the, again, Main Street, Emerson Avenue has already been developed, and to develop strategies for trying to deal with the unique problems that Beech Grove has. Beech Grove's commercial redevelopment problems are linked to a whole list of things. But out of Indianapolis, Marion County area, the one that's closest linked is Pendleton Pike. Pendleton Pike has even greater fragmentation of the property ownership than Beech Grove does. Some of the sites along Pendleton Pike have been carved so that the original site that had a house on it had a shed out back, and that shed became a coin shop or something, but it was parceled off so that the guy could sell the coin shop, and now they're left with these fragmentation things that they have to try to assemble the land into sites of 2 to 5 acres in order to make them viable as economically viable as commercial redevelopment sites. So that's going to be a longer-term strategy along Emerson Avenue. In addition to that, I will put on the table, although I don't know what the response is and I'm a little leery, but you have some zoning problems. You have some zoning issues along there where some very low forms of land use can negatively affect the rest of the development. And before somebody's going to come in and put in $10 or $20 million, they're going to want to know that they're not going to end up being next to some, the joke that we had going was the topless shooting gallery because it allows topless bars and shooting galleries. And so it was a funny joke the first time. I guess I've worn it out by now. The third level of redevelopment is industrial redevelopment. And you are going, in the document that we're developing, you are going to get a series of strategies for individual sites of industrial redevelopment. The highest of those, and the one that we hope comes out first, is the rock pile. That battle was finally won, despite the fact that we had all of the forces of right on our side. It took us better than a year to get that resolved. In the meantime, the previous owner who was in bankruptcy actually tried to create a situation where a second set of dumping was going to take place on that site. But the fact of the matter is that under the law, none of the dumping should have taken place. And so there's a strategy for reclaiming the rock pile, getting rid of what's on there, and then putting that site into a redevelopment mix for the city of Beech Grove and creating new assessed value, which would put downward pressure on the property tax situation. Second is the CSX site. It is the largest I-4S site that's still available in Marion County. It has some environmental problems. I think it would be fair to say, and I have told the CSX representative, whom I very much respect, that dealing with a company the size of CSX is a huge problem because if you stab that beast, it takes it 2 years to feel it. I have had lawyers tell me that the only way to get CSX's attention is to sue them, and then when they have to show up in court, you can actually talk to somebody. Other than that, you'll get pushed from place to place. What the mayor has been able to do is to engender, I think, some cooperation from them. They have elevated it, but it's got to go through an environmental process. And let's face the facts, environmental approvals are as tedious as CSX's bureaucracy. So we've got two things there that we have to confront. But when that site is ready, I think it's fair to say, we've had a preliminary, the city and CSX cooperated for a preliminary site plan. 1.5 million square feet of industrial redevelopment is possible there. And even at a nominal assessed value of, say, $100 a square foot, when you total both the real property and the personal property that would go in, you're talking about some significant numbers there, $15 to $150 million. 1.5 million, 15 is only $10 a foot, so it's 10 times that. $150 million of new AV, again, pressing down or upward on the assessed value of the community. The third is the refined metals site. That site, we have met with the individuals that want to reclaim the site. They, of course, want top dollar. They don't really want to spend the money to reclaim it. They've got some lead problems. The city promised cooperation with them. I've called them twice, been shuffled off to a second guy twice, the same guy, and twice he has called me back and left a message, and I've called him. And so it's, again, you've got to chase this around. But that's 22 acres that could easily become a small industrial park with 4, 5, 6 occupants, and could easily house 250,000 square feet again of new industrial development. As you can, and then finally on this, and I can't call it industrial and don't really call it commercial, you have the St. Francis site that the St. Francis folks have been talking to us all the way along, and we're hopeful that will eventually work out. I will say publicly here that what we've said, Joe Owens has heard me say before, the one thing that scares me the most as a redevelopment specialist is if the site goes dark, those properties that surround it, those houses, and we have yet to count them, we could probably do an analysis of this, but those houses that are around there will suffer in terms of property value. People don't like uncertainty, markets don't like uncertainty, and so we've tried to impress upon everyone that the most important thing here is that the site not go dark. We've been assured, or one of the workshops, there were some folks there that assured that wasn't going to happen. I have no reason to doubt the folks, but that is a big wild card kind of hanging out there. Until I see somebody else has bought it and ready to deal with it, then I'll start feeling better at the minute that somebody shows up. All of these things then spill down to a series of things that we think are important. First, I think we are proposing a plan that says that public information is one of the critical factors. The Redevelopment Commission wants to work with you guys on the City Council to try to make sure that you know everything that's going on, and they also want to make sure that the public knows everything that's going on. And so there are a number of ways that they're going to, we want to see happen, posting things on the website, posting videos on the website, possibly doing things that are a little more compact than me rattling on and on like I'm doing right now. But also getting other public information out about different things that are taking place so that people know, as opposed to rumors getting started and then trying to head the rumors off, which is a harder thing to do. The second thing is leveraging of grant funds, or leveraging of TIF funds. You've already done that and done that well. That habit needs to be continued. But for example, one of the things that will be recommended in the final document as we go through this process with the second set of properties and bring the whole thing to a close is, for example, in, I'm sorry, I keep forgetting, I get them all mixed up. Park Grove, the place where you did the streets, that it is a low and moderate income neighborhood that is eligible for community focus fund grants of up to $500,000. So that means somewhere like $100,000 and $200,000 of TIF money could be used to make it into $750,000 of grant money to get more streets done in Park Grove, more alleys done in the downtown, potentially, that sort of thing. But continuing to plug those things in and leveraging the TIF money at hopefully at least 1-to-1, but perhaps as much as 2 to 4 to 1 over the long run. I was told to make this 10 minutes, and I think I've used up all 10, so I will be happy to answer questions, or I will go on for another 10 minutes, whichever you want me to do.
Any questions for Mike?
I have one.
Yes, sir.
I know we talked about you talked about zoning. Is it specifically Emerson, or is it Emerson and Main Street, or just Main Street?
Well, I
Is
think
that what
there's
we're talking about?
Here's the bottom line, and I don't wish for anybody to think ill of me at downtown, but there's no secret to the fact that I've had discussions. My clients include Speedway and Lawrence. So this is the third time we've had the same set of discussions. Indianapolis has traditionally simply zoned major corridors as C7, but then they haven't controlled those uses. And those uses, I'm not opposed to all of them, but some of them at the bottom end I don't particularly like. They have zoned secondary corridors as sometimes C4, C5, and even those have some things that make me uneasy. I don't want to make my opinions the driving force in all of this. What we are offering to you all and the City Council is the opportunity to have workshops similar to the ones we had for the public, where the public is invited, but our focus is to direct things and answer your questions. But one of our workshops went through all of the things that were allowed under these different things, and then want to get people's opinions about what things make them nervous, what things they think are not appropriate for the city of Beech Grove. At the end of that, it would be my recommendation that you consider one of two things, either rezoning using Indianapolis's zoning code, or doing something that other communities do for major corridors, which is called an overlay zone. And an overlay zone simply says that, okay, all of this is C7, but they're going to have higher standards, they can't build metal buildings, that sort of thing. The redevelopment is the hardest thing of all community development activities. It is hard because the Constitution protects people that have tried to do the right thing, and frankly, it protects people that haven't done that well at doing the right thing. But we have to work our way through that, and unfortunately, you don't have the luxury of paving the next bean field and turning it into a shopping center. So we're just going to have to bite the bullet and work hard and try not to make people angry, but say there's a line here that we can't cross.
And that's you answered the way I wanted, because I want everybody to know that that's what we're trying to do. We're not trying to railroad nothing in, but
Right.
you got to have an overlay, basically, is what you're saying. And then with St. Francis, you're saying, I attended some of your workshops, you're basically talking then like the Rule 9 for residential. You don't want that to happen around St. Francis. If
Right.
anybody attended your seminars that's in the audience or listening,
Yeah.
that's what you're talking about. You don't want that Rule 9 to take effect around St. Francis.
Except for around St. Francis, it's a rule of
Of
95.
however-
Then there's a bunch of property around it. They're going to have, they'll have direct impact at least across the street and one block in, and then indirect impact that'll kind of filter out throughout the rest of the community. And I hope that everything works out. I wish them nothing but the best. I'm not, it's just the reality is that Ray, one of the guys was named Ray, I've forgotten his last name, but he said that his house is already going down in value, and he says my taxes are lower, that's the good news, but the bad news is they're lower because my house isn't worth as much. So what we really like to do is to lower their taxes and increase their value, and then we've got something really good happening.
Comments or questions for Mike?
Could you speak briefly on the inclusion of the Group A properties going in this evening?
Yes, the Group A properties I think include, we've already got Alro in, correct? And now we have Bomar and Jackson Press, and I believe the Burger King are the three that are going in at this point in time. When we put Bomar in, there was expressed an interest we told them that they wanted to talk to us, and so we sat down with them. We'd like to see is that Big 4 road there improved, and Alro said that it'd be really nice if when they figure out what to do with CSX, if a spur could come off, if they could offload their steel products onto rail. Those kinds of things seem to be kind of piquing the interest of the folks in that particular corridor of the city in terms of opening their market to mass something more than you can just shove on a truck. And so those kinds of things seem to be interesting to them. In addition, there is apparently some sensitivity of the neighborhood that there are too many heavy trucks going up and down that street, and there are a lot of residential traffic. So the idea of separating truck traffic in that particular thing. So that corridor back there is one that I think is really going to end up being hugely important. If we got refined metals and even a tenth of what CSX could mean, you could double the assessed value of the community in the course of 10 years. And so that's why we're interested in trying to come up with ideas. I'm not an engineer, but come up with ideas to rework the transportation system back there so that it's not so much of an afterthought. That whole area back there is just kind of You know, it was out there when they started putting this in, and it's always pretty much been the same. I'd like to see some better roads out there with acceleration, deceleration lanes for the trucks, passing blisters, so when somebody's waiting to turn left, that they can get around them. Things that'll make residents' lives better, will get more employees in and out of them, and hopefully more employees that are living in the city of Beech Grove. The Burger King situation's a slightly different one. They're changing their footprint. They've got, I think, a nicer facility, but that's exactly what we want. We want people reinvesting in property out there. I'd much rather see that than, again, I'm sorry, I just came from, I went from Franklin to Seymour, and I'm back up here, so I'm a little scrambled with some of these, but there is, I think, a loan shop, a cash loan shop that occupied some sort of an old fast food. Was that a Ponderosa or a Wendy's or something like that? Okay. So you get the idea of what happens when those folks leave. On the other hand, you had Burger King saying, this is good enough that we want to be here. I frankly would like to see things like, personally, if I had my wishes, I'd like to see white tablecloth steakhouses on Main Street. I'd like to see things happen on the corner of Emerson and Main other than, will you guys be angry with me on the redevelopment commission if I bring up the issues that we've talked about privately on the buildings, some of the buildings that are out there? You know, you've got temporary buildings on the corner of Emerson and Main, the highest traffic corner. Buildings that should never have been allowed to even have an electrical drop. They don't have a foundation, and yet they're operating here. And according to the research that we've done, and I can't say that I'm the world's foremost authority on building permits, but there wasn't even a building permit that allowed those things to get in there. So you got these kind of things where people just did whatever was cheap, and I'm not trying to be mean to those people, but I'm saying that that's a high traffic corner that could be defining how people feel about Beech Grove. I will close by saying one more thing. We computed at one point, not 60 million, or what was it, 30 million people or something like that, 30 million readings of the words Beech Grove are happening per year now that were never there before. I moved to this city in 1973. Living on the northwest side. We had friends in Beech Grove, and I could never tell where it was because there was nothing that really, you know, you come down here and you could get you to their house, but where did Beech Grove start and the other place stop? Now, with the traffic that's there on Emerson Avenue, with the traffic on Main, people are reading the words Beech Grove repeatedly as they come. They know exactly where you are. And now all that's left, or not, it's not all that's left, it's a significant thing, is to continue to give them a positive reason to turn and spend some money here. So, I'm sorry I've pontificated. I hope I didn't offend anybody, and if I offended someone in the crowd, I didn't mean to, but I hope I spoke the truth. That was a roundabout answer to a question about only 3 properties, wasn't it? I'm sorry.
That's the kind of answer we expect from you.
Okay. Fair enough.
Don't ever disappoint us on that.
Okay, all right.
Any other questions from the redevelopment commission or from the council for Mike Shaver? If not, you can move on.
Thank you, Mike. Mr. Peters is up next with financial explanation.
Hello all. Appreciate the opportunity to be here as always. I know Mike got 10 minutes. Being that I'm the boring accountant, I'll try to only take 2 or 3 and take questions. So nobody goes to sleep. Just a couple things that we always want to bring up when we talk about TIF is, the great deal about TIF is you get to, as the redevelopment commission, levy the tax rates of all units of government on that incremental assessed value and keep all that revenue less the amount of state credits that get paid and spend it in your community for the benefit of your community. Under no other circumstance do you get to levy everybody's taxes and keep all the money and benefit yourself. Everything else that you levy, you have to share with the county and the school and the library and so forth. So overall, from a revenue perspective, great deal, you can't beat it. Another thing that we've always seen pop up in the last 12 years of doing this all across the state is the schools always pipe up and say, this hurts schools. And it's simply not true. And I'll give you a few examples of why that is. In the school general fund, the funding formula that's established by the state, it works off of a set amount, basically, of revenue per pupil. So that school, depending on how many pupils it has, is going to get a certain amount of revenue per pupil. And that's going to be funded in two parts. One is going to be local property tax dollars. Then whatever is required to make up the difference is money that comes from the state. Also included in this state funding formula, and you know, if you're ever really bored and want to look at something, it's about 20 pages long for each school system. But each school system has a target tax rate in there. And what happens is the target tax rate is applied to all of the assessed value in the school system to create how much local property tax goes toward that revenue per pupil. The state makes up the difference. What you do with TIF is you actually identify a certain amount of assessed value that you have, but you don't include it in that formula. It does not go to the tax base of the school. You set it aside for you to levy everybody's taxes against, generate your revenue for your projects. So because you have actually kept assessed value from going into the school funding formula, you have allowed less local property tax dollars in to support the school, and the state has made it up to your school system. So as a community, you're better off. The school general fund is completely neutral. It sees no difference. It's just less local dollars are in, more state dollars are in. The school system does have a fixed rate fund. It's called their capital projects fund, which they normally levy to do capital type things, desks, computers, could be building projects, things like that. That fund, because it has a fixed rate, would lose some revenue because you are keeping assessed value from going into that tax base. However, the lion's share of money raised for the school is always for operations. So what we have always seen every time we do this analysis is the amount of money, the extra state money that goes in to the school funding formula outweighs the amount of loss into the CPF fund. So again, the community comes out ahead. The school is pretty much neutral other than what would be a small loss in their capital projects fund. And the thing normally in the capital projects fund is anything that you could have purchased in there, you can probably roll into your next bond issue. Because, you know, there's kind of two ways to fund capital in our municipal funding structure. It's either you accumulate these monies in capital cumulative funds and then purchase things, or you do a debt financing. Or in the instance of most schools and municipalities, you do both. You keep the capital project fund to buy small things, and then you do bond issues to buy bigger things. So really the school's out nothing in the fact that they can normally bond for anything that they wouldn't have been able to purchase out of the capital projects fund because of the small amount of revenue. The community as a whole is better off because we have replaced local dollars with state dollars. And to give you a little bit of perspective on that, we're looking at the increase in state dollars specific to this analysis for Beach Grove is 73% greater than the loss to the CPF fund. And again, the loss to the CPF fund is not, its total is about $11,000. And you pick up an extra $19,000 into the operating fund. So one, we're not talking about a large amount of dollars in this, but you know, on a bigger scale, as you continue to do what you're doing, as long as the school funding formula continues as it has for the last dozen years, you know, that is a great methodology to continue to look at. You know, you're leveraging, as Mike was talking about, leveraging TIF money to get grant money. You're leveraging the TIF to draw more state money. Good deal for the community.
Jeff, I just want to go, there's two other items that I think are important as for the public and for these, this council and this commission to understand as it pertains to TIF with respect to schools. When you invest TIF dollars to grow your economy, you're growing your TIF, your increment is the real estate increment, the growth in real estate. The personal property growth goes to the general fund baseline, which the schools do benefit from. So for example, Walmart was TIF. The real property went into TIF. That was about 9 million AV. 4 million AV was created that didn't get TIF out of the Walmart project that went into the general fund of both, of all the entities. So by investing TIF to grow the economy, which is the primary purpose of what the Redevelopment Commission is doing, you're actually creating overall value for the entire city, which everybody benefits from. Not only are you benefiting with AV that does go to the general funds, the general base of the city, but you're also creating a community that's more attractive to bring families, students, jobs, all those things that benefit the schools as well. So it's easy to get caught up in one piece of the formula, but if you look at the total picture and you look at the purpose of redevelopment, it's about a long-term strategy to grow your economy, which everybody, schools and community, have direct benefit from. So sometimes it's an easy argument to try to create, but unfortunately, if you're looking at it in a very short run and a very small piece, you're arguing the wrong point. And I think that, I guess you would.
I mean, you know, that's a significant part of it is the personal property that you can spin off out of it. And the other thing that, you know, you hope to do over time is those properties that are, you know, contiguous to, or as Mike always uses, the rule of 9, you know, I think it works both ways. You make the improvements, you get other development around it that will not be TIF'd, but will add to the tax base and add to the benefits of the community.
Any questions or comments based on the financial report? Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Mr. Hall. Thank you.
This was originally, the addition of these 3 parcels to the existing redevelopment area is a 3-step process. The redevelopment commission first approves an amendment to the redevelopment plan and amendment to the boundaries of the redevelopment area to include these properties. They did that last spring, is the first step. The next step is that it comes to the city council for their approval, and as part of that approval, they also conclude that the amendment conforms with the general plan and development for the city. This is a result of legislation that was passed a few years ago that gave the city complete control of the TIP process, and they don't have to go to the Department of Metropolitan Development, the Plan Commission, for that sign off that it's in conformity with the comprehensive plan for the city. And then following the city's council's approval, then it comes back to the redevelopment commission for a public hearing and their final approval. So this evening, the resolution before the city council is the second step. It approves the addition of those 3 properties to the existing redevelopment area, and in doing so finds that the amendment to the plan conforms with the plan of development for the city. And I think, as you know, Mike has outlined, that's a pretty obvious conclusion. I'd be happy to answer any questions about what this resolution before you does, or in the process, or about the process in general.
Any questions for Rick? Basically, what Barnes and Thornburg has done, they are the Redevelopment Commission's counsel for redevelopment matters. So what you're considering tonight is on the advice and the preparation of their expertise. Any questions for Rick? Thanks, Rick.
Thank you.
Next item, we want to give an opportunity to those who have signed in to speak. I'll ask our city attorney to invite our speakers, please.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Your rules of procedure, just to refresh everyone's recollection, provide that public comment is limited to those citizens that sign in and identify specific items on the agenda that they would like to speak to. The council does have the authority to waive those rules of procedure. Tonight, you do have two people that have signed in, neither of which have identified a specific item on your agenda, so I'll circulate the sign-in sheet and ask the council to make a decision as to whether they'd like to waive the rules to allow those individuals to speak or waive public comment.
And again, the item that we're considering tonight is the resolution, so that is the germane.
It looks like the first speaker wrote RDC.
Generally, it's been item specific. The council, prior council has called for a specific item on the agenda to be called for, but if it's your feeling that that is part of the agenda, then again, council can waive those rules.
Can we limit their time to 2 minutes?
I need a motion to authorize those two speakers, and you can limit, in your motion, you can indicate the amount of time you'd like to hear from them.
I'd like to make a motion to give them 180 seconds to speak and ask their question. I changed it.
A minute and a half.
I changed it to 3 minutes.
3 minutes. I have a motion, I have a second.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Please call our first speaker, please.
Susie McMillan?
Hello.
Hello.
When I first came here tonight, I had one question, but after listening to them, I have another question, and I'll try to speak very quickly, and I'd appreciate it if you answer me quite quickly so I can get my questions in. Did Dr. Sager get invited to this meeting tonight, or has anyone asked Dr. Sager how the school does feel on the TIF money?
Why don't you go ahead and, this is your opportunity to ask your questions and make your comment, and then we'll have our other speaker, and then we'll respond.
Oh, okay, they can't respond while I'm
We'd rather
asking,
just, this is your 3 minutes.
and I'm asking the question.
Okay.
Okay, would any of you like to answer me? Has anyone asked Dr. Sager's opinion on the TIF and how that would affect the schools? And because I did call Dr. Sager several months ago and ask him about the TIF, and his response was TIF is a good thing as long as you don't start taking in too much of the property in Beech Grove for it. So that was one of the concerns that he did have with it, and I wish that he would have been invited here tonight. I'm hoping that some of
He
you have
wasn't
spoken to him.
uninvited, Susie. It was a public meeting. It was posted like everybody else. I think you heard the
Well,
explanation from Jeff.
that's my next question to all of you. The meeting that was posted 48 hours, and I mean, Ross, you're my councilman. I didn't know about it. I would imagine that most of Beech Grove probably didn't know about this meeting because we weren't made aware of it. And I hear people complain that people in Beech Grove don't attend functions and don't attend meetings, but gee, if we're not made aware of it, it's kind of hard for us to get here. I found out about it last night. So that was another thing. And the original reason why I was actually coming to the meeting was coming to RDC meeting, because I didn't know we were having a city council and RDC meeting, was to ask about the PR lady. And you can answer me in an email would be fine. There's several of these guys that have my email address. I'm curious as to what she has accomplished since we have signed her contract or have her on, and what exactly is she doing? I'm assuming she's not just writing things for the newspaper or sending out mass emails. I'm assuming that maybe she's calling on corporations and businesses and trying to do things to benefit Beech Grove. But I would like to hear that from all of you as to exactly what she's doing. No, I said you don't have to answer me tonight. An email would be fine. Thank you.
And the next individual is Jo Ellen Castetter.
Well, I only have a question. This person wasn't really introduced. I'd like to know who he is and where he's from. And number two, I could hardly hear anything, otherwise I might have had a lot of questions.
Was it me?
It was was you, I know him.
This is Rick Hall. He's an attorney with Barnes and Thornton.
Rick
Hall.
Hall, okay. That's all I wanted. Thank you.
Yeah, we did. But I think we're proceeding with the Girl Scouts. Yeah.
Let me, Susie, so if it helps you at all,
Anything will help.
Dr. Sager gets a copy of the analysis that he does and then has an opportunity specifically to respond. There has to be, all the taxing units get a copy of the financial impact analysis, and he has the opportunity to respond. Joey, I believe, asked several times for a meeting with Dr. Sager during the course of the summer, and we never got around to that. So it's his choice, but let's not leave these steaming, these set fire to something on a doorstep here. There really isn't an interest in keeping him out of the process. And if he said, what was it that he told you that that it wasn't a bad thing?
He told me several months ago, I called him back in the summer to ask him specifically how the TIP money affected the schools. And I didn't send my children to public schools, but I am interested, obviously, in the public schools in Beach Grove.
Sure.
His answer to me was, Susie, we don't necessarily like TIP. Some of it is because I said, to be quite honest, I do like TIP.
Okay.
I like what it does for the redevelopment in the city. Quite frankly, I'm not even against what they're proposing to do. I would have liked to have had a little bit more notice, so maybe I could have thought about it a little more and spoke to my councilman about it. But anyway, Dr. Sager said as long as it's kept within reason and they're not going throughout the city and taking all the property in the city and making it TIF, no, it's fine. What they've done so far is fine. But he said for them to continue to do it, it does present a problem for the schools.
Well, I don't know what to say to him about all of that other stuff, but I think that 3 properties in this particular case and tipping abandoned industrial sites, there's no possible way he can argue against that. So here we are, and and he gets a specially marked certified copy of the thing. So there we are.
Okay. Next on our agenda for tonight is, I think we've already covered off on questions or discussion from the council as it pertains to our presenters. Again, I'll open it up. If anything has caused you to want to ask a question or open up another topic for discussion, you have 3 of our prime redevelopment consultants here. You're certainly free to call Mike or Rick or Jeff back for any questions or concerns or comments you might have.
So I have one I guess it's for Rick. We're at stage 2 then, for this 3-stage process?
We're at stage 2 of the 3-stage process for Group A.
For Group A. I just want to make sure everybody else understands that. And then there'll be hearings, public hearings. If we approve this tonight, then there will be public hearings following this.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Rick, you want to describe the rest of the process for this particular group?
Sure. The next step is if this resolution is approved tonight, as Mike talked about, Jeff has a tax impact statement that outlines exactly what the impact is on the various taxing units that these properties are located in, including the schools. Those will be sent to the taxing units, along with the notice that there's going to be a public hearing, which will be March 6th, I believe, yeah. March 6th, and that notice will also be published in the newspaper 10 days in advance of that hearing, and then the Redevelopment Commission will conduct a hearing on March 6th on this issue, at which time the public will have an opportunity to speak. If the Redevelopment Commission desires to go forward, at that point, there'll be a resolution. If that's adopted, then the process is complete.
And I just want to reiterate that gives Dr. Sager an opportunity one more time to be present. Anybody from the school board, library board, any taxing unit. The schools aren't the only taxing unit affected by this. Any taxing unit that wants to weigh in on this, there's a public hearing on March 6th. that completes this process. So this is not the end of the process, this is a step in the process. Any other questions or comments for your consultants? If not, we will move on to approval of on the motion to approve resolution number 3, 2008. What's the pleasure of the council? Go ahead. We'll let the city attorney read the resolution. I'm sorry. You've had a chance, you've had it read, but we'll read it out loud for everybody.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council, and members of the Redevelopment Commission of the council. You have before you this evening resolution number 3, 2008, which is the resolution of the council approving certain matters in connection with the expansion of a redevelopment area and an allocation area and the approval of an amended redevelopment plan for said area. Whereas the City of Beech Grove Redevelopment Commission, the Commission, as the governing body for the City of Beech Grove Redevelopment Department, the Department, pursuant to Indiana Code 36-7-14 as amended, the Act, adopted Resolution Number 1-2005, the 2005 resolution, designating an area known as the City of Beech Grove Integrated Redevelopment Area, the Consolidated Redevelopment Area, as a redevelopment area pursuant to Sections 15, 16, and 17 of the Act, and designating all of such area, the Consolidated Allocation Area, as an allocation area pursuant to Section 39 of the Act. And whereas the 2005 resolution approved a redevelopment plan for the Consolidated Redevelopment Area, the Consolidated Plan, and whereas the 2005 resolution created the Consolidated Redevelopment Area by expanding the boundaries of the previously designated Amtrak Conrail Redevelopment Area and the South Emerson Redevelopment Area, collectively the original redevelopment areas, to include a certain additional area, the 2005 expansion area, and then consolidating the original redevelopment areas. And whereas the Commission adopted Resolution Number 4, 2006, the 2006 resolution, on February 14, 2006, amending the 2005 resolution and consolidated plan to expand the boundaries of the consolidated redevelopment area and the boundaries of the consolidated allocation area to include certain additional area, the 2006 expansion area. And whereas the Commission adopted Resolution Number 1, 2007, the declaratory resolution on February 22, 2007, further amending the 2005 resolution to 1, enlarge the boundaries of the consolidated redevelopment area as previously amended to include certain additional areas, the 2007 expansion area, and designate such 2007 expansion area as a redevelopment area pursuant to Sections 15, 16, and 17 of the Act, and 2, enlarge the boundaries of the consolidated allocation area as previously amended to include the 2007 expansion area and designate such 2007 expansion area as an allocation area pursuant to Section 39 of the Act. And whereas the declaratory resolution approved an amendment and supplement to the consolidated plan as amended and supplemented the amended plan for the consolidated area as expanded to include the 2007 expansion area. And whereas pursuant to Section 16D and 17.5 of the Act, the Commission has submitted the declaratory resolution and the amended plan to the Common Council of the City, the Council. Now therefore be it resolved by the Common Council of the City of Beech Grove, Indiana as follows. Number 1, pursuant to Section 16D and 17.5 of the Act, this council hereby, 1, finds and determines that the declaratory resolution and the amended plan conform in all respects to the plan of development for the city, and 2, approves in all respects the declaratory resolution and the amended plan. 2, the council hereby approves the determination that the 2007 expansion area is a redevelopment area pursuant to Sections 15, 16, and 17 of the Act, and an allocation area pursuant to Section 39 of the Act. And 3, this resolution shall be in full force and effect from and after its passage by the council and approval by the mayor as required by law. And it provides for your adoption this evening on the 21st day of February.
Now, I'll ask for the pleasure of the council for resolution number 3, 2008, please.
I'd like to make a motion that the council accept resolution number 3, 2008.
A motion, I have a second.
I'll second.
The floor is open for discussion by the council members. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Resolution number 3, 2008 passes unanimously.
At this time, commission members, I'll entertain a motion to approve the claims docket.
Move that we pay the claims.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Claims are approved. Any other business before the commission this evening by commission members? Thank you. Mr. Mayor?
This time, I would call for a motion to adjourn by the city council.
Make a motion to adjourn.
A motion, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
City council's adjourned.
Motion from the redevelopment commission to adjourn.
Move we adjourn.
Is there a second? We're adjourned. Thank you.
Michael, just say. I don't want to get